Hey everybody, it is September 26, 2009, I am Sonic Sons, and I'm not incredibly experienced with things regarding role-playing. Which, if you don't know what I mean by that, that's Dungeons & Dragons, probably the role-playing thing you've heard of, if you've heard of one. And there's a variety of other systems. There's GURPS, there's the hero system, there's a whole list of them. Whatever, you look at it, role-playing. This typically involves several people sitting around like a table or something. Each member of the game, the role-playing game, controls a fictional character. And you're off in this fictional world thing, which is managed by someone called the DM, Dungeon Master, or GM for Game Master. And the Game Master sits around and tells these things like, okay, so, let's say it was a fantasy environment, which is the typical thing to do, or the most popular that I know of anyway. Okay, so, you're all in a dungeon. Let's be really cliche. You're in this dungeon, and it goes down and deep, and there's tunnels, and there's monsters, and we'll describe these monsters to you, and the various players will state what their characters are trying to do and accomplish. And then there's a variety of rules. The GM will have himself a big old book with all the rules of how these things work, and you'll have things like, okay, I swing my sword, and okay, well, you hit some dice, we'll roll the dice, we'll add up some things, and we find out you hit, this guy here, you hit him to this amount, and you did this amount of damage, and now he's dead, but now this other guy's angry at you, and you do some more math, and you roll some more dice, and such. And it's interesting. It's been considered one of the classic, archetypal geek pastimes, role-playing. Or if you want to go really geek, LARPing, L-A-R-P, which is role-playing, but instead of sitting at a table, you all get up and run around. Like have a stick or something and be like, this is my sword, ah! Just considered like absurdly geeky, but I don't know, whatever. I'm open to it. I haven't really LARPed before, except, if you count being a kid and running around and doing that, which is kind of what we're doing. Whether or not you're LARPing or just role-playing, you're playing pretend, sort of. It's sort of like playing pretend, except we're adults now, and we can't call it playing pretend, and we need to have rules. You need to, specific rules here, so that makes it better or something. And that's not to say that rules are always a bad thing. Take, for instance, a kid playing with a chess set and not knowing the rules. Well, you could have some fun stacking the pieces on top of each other or something, but if you know the rules of chess, things get much more interesting, right? Also, it's a strategy that a 6-year-old or something is not going to really comprehend. But rules, though. What do we get out of these rules in role-playing? I'm not exactly sure. I've played a little of Dungeons & Dragons. Some friends of mine did. I've been on a few sessions, played a few things. First, you gotta memorize how everything works. And once you've memorized it, it becomes obviously much easier. But still, I was doing this, I was like playing a ninja, and I'm like, okay, I had this sneak attack, weak point attack thingy, whatever it was, and I had to roll, I think, like 3 dice. I had to roll these 2 things to see if I find a weak point, and then I roll this other one to see if I hit, and then like another 4th one maybe to see if how much I hurt the guy, and I had to keep asking people, what was the thing, and when we went into a battle, because most of this stuff, typically it's all about you. You battle like monsters or villains of some sort, and then you collect treasure. And then, this treasure is like more equipment, and your character can do more stuff. You also get more experience, which they measure in experience points, and then if you get enough points, you typically level up, which you get more abilities. Or some systems, specific abilities, one at a time, will level up all by themselves, or perhaps they also go up at the same time. There's variety on that, yada yada. But here I am messing with these things, and the dice I have to roll, and the combat, typically combat. You can do other things with role-playing, by the way. In fact, I found that one of the main tensions of role-playing is whether we're here to do combat and like how effectively can we kill the monsters, or whether we are in fact playing a role in the sense of a character. There's a whole wide spectrum and intuitive retention on that, because some people will say, well, you have to figure out what your character would do, even if you wouldn't want to do that. And then you have an odd thing when most systems don't directly reward that. Typically you kill something, you get experience points, and that gives you more abilities. And more abilities typically means you get more participation in the game. The whole point of a game, the whole point of practically any game, is it is a series of interesting choices. There's stuff you can do, right? In just games in general, but also role-playing games. So you get more abilities, which you typically get from killing stuff. So then we sort of hack in this other bit of, okay, well, if you do something good role-playing, like you come up with a dramatic moment or something, you'll get experience points. But since it's so dang hard to measure what counts as a dramatic moment, as opposed to how many trolls did you kill yesterday, typically the experience points for role-playing bit is sort of thrown in by the DM, or the GM, whatever. Technically DM is like copyrighted term or something. So the GM, the game master, has to throw that in. It's odd that the systems don't directly support that. In cases where, people want that to be directly supported. It all depends on what you want, of course. Different groups are going to have different desires for what they want out of the role-playing games. But so there's one over there. Are we playing a role, or are we not? Or are we, or like if your character is in a spot where they wouldn't know something that's, this other character is doing, but like, you're right across the table, so you know. Or when the GM says something like, okay, everyone roll a listen check. You roll to see how well you listened, because there was some important noise occurred down the hallway or something. And then you fail the check, but like, now you know you failed the check. So clearly there must have been something worthwhile listening to, otherwise the GM wouldn't have said, everyone roll a listen check. So there's a problem with the thing. Also, with the deal I was talking about role-playing earlier, you get experience points, which give you typically greater abilities to kill stuff, as opposed to greater abilities to enact dramatic scenes and stuff. And this is with Dungeons and Dragons, the granddaddy of them all, basically. The granddaddy that anyone cares about anyway. I suppose there probably are a couple old ones that I don't necessarily know about. There's a lot of hack and slash, just kill a bunch of stuff, and people are like, no, but rolls, and people are like, no, but no. There's a whole variety of systems out there. A while back I started wondering how I would make my own system. I called it Portals. And then they made a video game called Portal. But Portal was singular, so this is plural, so we're good. I was thinking recently, maybe I'll make it like the Portal Uber system, or Portal's Uber game. Pug. I don't know. It's unique. I started researching other systems. There's a wide variety out there. There's like a random bit called 9 Worlds. I was listening to, and this had you do not with dice but with playing cards. And the playing cards, the ones you depending on what you drew, you would have a very vague idea of what was happening, whether you're kind of winning or succeeding, sort of thing. And then you get to make stuff up, how that works. Then I got interested in rules-free systems, or relatively rules-light systems, really, like Wushu. And in Wushu, let's describe this. You have 5 traits. They're ranked on a scale of 1 to 5, I think typically goes. The higher level of the trait, like the better you are at it, or something like that. And whenever you do anything, if it has anything to do with one of these traits, you're like, okay, cool. If I roll lower than that trait number, then I succeed. Which has you rolling low is a good thing, which is like, rolling high is typically good. Rolling low is typically, see, already there, this is like, here I am thinking out criticisms. Basically, you have 5 traits, and you roll a dice. You roll regular 6-sided dice for Wushu. And then you succeed, And the other feature of that is the more detail you describe as to what you were doing, the more dice you roll. And you take the highest roll out of everything that you rolled all at once, you see. So if you describe more details, it becomes more interesting, and the game is meant to reward you for being creative that way. As opposed to a lot of other stuff, which is more the simulationist perspective.